Hey everybody, Ben here from the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Blood Bowl 7's rosters, Dark Elves. So, we're going through every team in Blood Bowl 2020, and we're redoing their 7's rosters in line with the changes from the Deathzone book. So, the rules for 7's got a bit of a tweak. The access to certain things got changed as well. So, if you want a full breakdown of that, we do have a video fully detailing the changes for 7's, but we are using the last 2 years of 2020 experience and a ton of 7's games experience, and we're putting together some of the most fun and or competitive rosters for Blood Bowl 7's. Now, Dark Elves are a tier 1 team in 11's, and they are just as tier 1 in 7's. So let's have a look at Dark Elf rosters. Okay, so why are Dark Elves so good at 7's? Well, they're elves. Okay, so everybody is at least movement 6 and Ag 2+. That alone, in a game like 7's, means that they're really, really good. Okay? Ag 2+ is wonderful. In 7's, your rerolls are twice the price, so having less rerolls means that better skills, better stats are just better for the consistency of your gameplay. You're less likely to have a turnover by half compared to an Ag 3 team, for example. The linemen for Dark Elves are also decently armoured. At armour 9+, they're as tough as a human lineman, which is unusual for elves. And again, that's just the linemen. Dark Elves have some of the best positionals in the game. Dark Elf Blitzers are just phenomenal. They have got movement 7, hand block, and strength 3, and Ag 2+, with easy access to agility skills, which means that they are basically one skill away from being movement 7, Ag 2+ blodgers, which of itself is a superstar on the 7's pitch, and this roster can take 4 of them, which is just filthy. So the great thing about 7's is that you are limited to just 4 positionals, and you're only limited to 600k. One of the downsides of this roster is that the linemen, who we've talked about being great, you pay for it, 70k a piece, and the expensive positionals mean that you are going to struggle to get everything that you want, let alone try and buy a reroll for it. But that's okay. You've got those blitzers who we've talked about being brilliant, and you've also got access to witch elves here. Movement 7, they start with dodge and frenzy and jump up, so they are always going to be running around at movement 7. They've already got dodge, which combined with Ag 2+ means that they are highly mobile, as well as strength 3 dodge being a little bit resilient. Now, their armor is lower than the rest, and they do have frenzy with no combat skills, so they are going to get themselves in a pickle. But assuming that armor doesn't break when that happens, that jump up is going to mean that they can block from the ground with frenzy, or they can just jump up and they've still got 7 squares to fly around. And that's assuming you don't have any skills, because like the Blitzer, they are 1 skill away from being blodgers. And when you just get, blodgers, man, blodgers, there's a reason everyone hates war dancers, and it's not because they're movement 8. Ag 2+, yeah, we talked about that. Weaknesses, expensive, we talked about that. No sure hands. Now, that's no sure hands / no rerolls because of how expensive the roster is. So when you're picking up a ball, when you're trying to do a thing you really need to do, the likelihood with this team is that if you roll that 1, that is it for your turn. There is probably not going to be a situation where you've got that reroll to be able to undo that 1. Unless, of course, you've got dodge on the witch elves, and you've got things like block to keep your blitzers being consistent. We haven't even talked about the runner or the assassin, which is just more icing on the dark elf cake. Okay, so we're going to kick this off with a great starting point for the dark elf roster. 3 blitzer, 1 runner, 3 linemen. So the 3 blitzer runner combo is probably the strongest place to start. Now we're going to flex this roster one way or another and slide in some different positionals to give you different strength points. But with this roster, you get 3 of those movement 7 block pieces. So that is a brilliant amount of agility and speed and strength. 3 block in 7's is very useful. A lot of other rosters may be capped at 2 just because of the way the roster's built, let alone having access to more than that. And let alone them being movement 7 with Ag 2+. And then we've gone with the runner in this build for 2 reasons. One, it is another movement 7 piece. So you're playing Dark Elves. Dark Elves are known for having good armor. The most of this roster does have good armor, with the exception of the runner, but you've also got 4 players there who are movement 7, which is really good. Now that runner, not only do you get the speed boost, and yes, technically has dump off, but dump off is a skill you would much rather really never ever use. but it does have the skill. It also has passing access, and this is why the runner here is so important. It's got a passing skill of 3+, but passing's dead, right? So when it comes to sevens, you're either going to be doing this in a league format, straight out of the Deathzone book, which means you're going to be taking random skills, and I've said it a million times, if you're taking random skills, it doesn't matter what you get, you're getting it. And that can be a really good way to try out new skills and new combinations. Or you're playing sevens in an expansion or constructed format. An expansion format like Super 7 series, where you choose a skill after every game, or a format like a tournament format like SCA, where you get this skills for this tier, this skills for this tier, and this skills for this tier, and it's resurrection. So when it comes to skill sets, Dark Elves are likely to be tier 1, and that means you're probably not going to get very many skills, let alone any secondary skills. The fact that the runner can take that leader on one skill and give you that reroll for the team is going to mean that time you roll a 1 and it's the guy who doesn't have dodge or whatever, you get to reroll it. And it's basically going to buy you an extra turn. Leader is a phenomenal skill in sevens, so it's going to be hard not to use it. Now, if you don't want to use it, then that runner gets better with either of the best skills in sevens. So, the best skills in sevens, block, dodge, sure hands are the top 3. Block is going to mean that you basically get a lower armored blitzer. At that point, you've got 4 blitzers then, one of them just happens to be armor 8. That's the only point of difference, and that's a great place to start. Or you give him dodge, and that means you've got 3 block pieces and 1 dodge piece, who becomes your, well, primary runner. And he does have dump off. So if he moves into position, if they declare a blitz on him, he can use that passing 3+ and the integral edge 2+ of the rest of your team to make sure that ball goes in the right direction. So there are some times where dump off is good. Generally speaking, you want to use a screen and protect your ball carrier, but hey, it's sevens. There are going to be gaps appearing on the pitch. So the runner is okay. Leader is the great choice for him. Gets you a team reroll, and you're still left with a movement 7 edge 2+ piece with dump off. So he's a better Wood Elf lineman at that point, and that's not to be sniffed at. Then you've got those 3 blitzers. Now, we talked about this at the top of the video. Dodge on these guys just means they're fantastic. Gutter runners are brilliant because they're edge 2+ with dodge. The blitzer is slower than the gutter runner, but he's got strength 3 and block, so it's a pretty good trade-off. As soon as a blitzer gets dodge, he becomes a scoring threat, and the mobility is just surreal. But in sevens, there is another skill and another role that you really want to consider when developing or planning out your team, and that is some kind of defensive player, a sweeper. And particularly, we're looking at you, tackle, because 1 Dark Elf blitzer with tackle in your backfield with movement 7 and all this agility and support to basically give you that support. And what I mean support is emotional support, but also that support to give you 2-die block. 2-die block with a movement 7, edge 2+ block tackle blitzer is going to result in any ball carrier basically hitting the deck. So having that 1 tackle piece is going to be really important. Just from talking about this roster, we've talked about how great dodge is. So having tackle to undo that dodge is going to have a target in basically all but about 5 teams. So tackle is a really solid piece, and if you don't have a defensive tackler, you're going to miss one. Now, there's a ton of great skills for the blitzers here. Sidestep's good, frenzy's good fun if you've got a guard piece to support it, and then you've got guard and mighty blow if you have access to a secondary. This is something that I think is going a little bit under the radar with Blood Bowl 2020, is that Dark Elf blitzers or Dark Elf linemen can just save up to 12 SPP in regular games and take guard and take mighty blow that historically used to be in doubles territory. If you get a secondary skill, you may just find a Dark Elf lineman or a Dark Elf blitzer with guard, and actually that gives you you've got frenzy pieces in the Witch Elves. So having 1 blitzer with a secondary of guard or a lineman with a secondary of guard is going to give that frenzied Witch Elf 4 dice instead of 2. So that's going to be pretty phenomenal. So watch out for that. The runner we've talked about. The linemen here are brilliant. Block, dodge, sure hands to be a reliable ball carrier, and kick are all phenomenal skills in sevens. These linemen are brilliant. 1 skill is going to make them even better. So if you are playing with randoms, lineman with a random general, blocks great, wrestles great, sure hands is great, kicks great, frenzy's entertaining. There's a ton of great results there. Or you just pick either block or dodge for combat or mobility. It's magic. Roster comes in at 590. You got nothing spare to do anything with, but quite frankly, looking at this list, What more could you want? Except a Witch Elf. So the 2 Blitz mix takes that previous roster and upgrades one of your Blitzers to a Witch Elf. Now, there's 2 lines of thought about this. One is you're losing block and gaining a frenzy piece that doesn't have block. So technically it's a little less consistent. The flip side of that, sorry microphone, is that this player comes with dodge. So if you're looking for mobility, it is more consistent. And offensively, you've got a greater potential for serious harm because of that frenzy. Now, the Blitzers do the same role, but that Witch Elf benefits greatly from that skill known as block. Then it becomes a blodger with frenzy. If you've snuck a bit of guard on there, it's going to be great. If you haven't, you still have enough agility and movement to be able to support the Witch Elf. A frenzier that is supported is basically a rat ogre. And if you've watched any of the other videos, you probably know how I feel about rat ogres in sevens. So the Witch Elf is a great piece. You can also laden it with tackle to use that frenzy as a really great defensive piece. We're going to have tackle targets, so it's not the worst skill in the world, but block is going to protect them as well as allow you to unprotect your opponents. So block is technically better. Now, the rest of this roster stays exactly the same, and you're doing exactly the same stuff with it. It comes in bang on 600k, so there's nothing else you can do, but you end up with 2 movement 7 block pieces, 1 movement 7 dodge piece, and 1 movement 7 leader piece with 3 brilliant linemen. Now, if you like the Witch Elves a lot, you could run this roster, which again, we're kind of deriving from the last one. We're binning off the runner and its dump off potential and the fact that it can take leader, and we're taking that 2 Blitzer build and swapping them into 2 Witch Elves instead. So you've got 1 Blitzer and 2 Witch Elves with 4 linemen. Now we are going down the consistency track, but up in the potential carnage track. So it's a really interesting kind of wave. 2 Witch Elves are terrifying on the 7s pitch. The fact that they are movement 7 and they've got dodge with Edge 2+ means that there is going to be very few places that are safe for a Witch Elf. The pitch is smaller in 7s, so that means that there's always going to be even more potential for a jolly good surfing when it comes to Witch Elves. So this is a less consistent build, but it is going to end up in a lot of stress and a lot of surfs. So the Blitz 2 Witch build, higher potential, kind of, yeah, higher ceiling, lower floor. Now, there's one positional we haven't talked about yet, and it's present in this roster, which is Kane Sevens. So Kane is the god of murder. That is who the Dark Elves absolutely love. That's who Witch Elves love. But also, that is who the Assassins love. Now, this roster here is a Caneite-themed build. 2 Witch Elves. So all that stuff we just talked about, how great they are, how terrifying they are, totally applies. Then you've got 2 Assassins. Now, Assassins are absolutely brilliant players in 7s. They're not as tough as linemen, but that stab and shadowing ability is going to be able to be targeted. Now, shadowing is not a skill that comes up all that frequently in 11s. Not really. Most of the time, if a Dark Elf is on the line, if an Assassin, is on the line or is shadowing a target, that target is instead just going to turn around and punch him in the face. Now, in 7s, you tend to have a little bit more space, a little bit more openness, and therefore a little bit more of a focus on maneuverability. And the fact is here that not only do these guys have shadowing, which is going to force your opponent to make more rolls, they've got movement 7. So this roster here still has 4 movement 7 pieces. 2 of them have dodge. Now, the Assassins have got shadowing. They're going to follow dudes around, and you are going to get free stabs with them. Now, sometimes they're going to get punched, absolutely, but a free stab has got a much bigger upside in 11s because that can just be straight up removal for a dude. And 1 guy out of 7s is a much bigger impact than 1 guy out of 11s. So the Assassins are really quite good, and the fail case is that they're movement 7 edge 2+ pieces. Very much like the runner, the fail case is that they are overpriced Wood Elf linemen. I have played many 7s games with Wood Elves, and the Wood Elf linemen are not bad. And you can upgrade the Assassins and give them dodge to help them be maneuverable. It's going to help keep them alive as well. You can give them frenzy to go for a stab then a block. I think it's the right way. It's a block then a stab, isn't it? Yeah, that way around. Or you can give them sidestep to just be super aggravating and stick on target. I think Even in this roster, what you want to do is focus your skills on the Witch Elves to make them more reliable. The great thing here is you don't need to worry too much about a ball carrier because everybody is Edge 2+. They're all ball carriers. But what you do have is sacrificing basically 2 pips of armor across your whole team for the occasional shot at stabbing a dude. And every now and again, that is really going to pay off. So again, the more into the realm of the murder god that we go, the less consistent the roster is going to be, but the more potential there is for murder, death, and mayhem. So if you want a fail case of a good bunch of Edge 2+ dudes and just frenzy, stab action, this is going to be terrifying. If you come up against a mid-range to heavy team, you're in trouble. You come up against a stunty team, you are going to pound. And just to prove that rerolls are a thing in Blood Bowl 7s, even for Dark Elves, here is the roster for you. So 7 Line Elves and a reroll comes in at 590,000. That is everything that you can have. I think you may be able to upgrade 1 lineman to an assassin, I think, maybe. How much is an assassin? 85? No, you are SOL. This is it. If you want a reroll, this is the roster you can run. You're still going to do fine. You just have to use what few skills you're going to get and turn your dudes into linemen. I don't know how else to sell this roster. You've got a reroll, but you don't have a Dark Elf Blitzer or an Assassin or a Runner or a Witch Elf, and I would much rather be excited about my positionals and watch them fail me than be bored by my positionals and know that I get a chance once per game, well, once per half, to make them be less bad. It's really tough to pick a roster here. I love the Kane one. I think that's really fun. I think for max consistency, the 3 Blitzer Runner build is probably best. The Runner taking leader and a Blitzer taking dodge or tackle is probably your baseline. Now, you can take the other build and have that Witch Elf in there instead, and maybe you've got a bit more of a higher upside. I don't think it matters too much. It's very much a case of, do you want the Frenzy, do you not want the Frenzy? And those 2 rosters fit really nicely. You don't get a lot of freedom when planning and building a Dark Elf roster, but you get what you're paying for. And if you think about a human roster with Edge 3+ everywhere, they take a reroll, well, you are just gonna fail half the time. That's how big of a difference we're talking here. And the Blitzers are great. It's just brilliant. Dark Elves are excellent. They will reward you for positioning well, and every now and again you can just do ridiculous things with dice and it's going to be pulled off. And they've got the armor to weather it as well. I don't know if I'd rather go Blitzer Runner, like 3 Blitzer Runners, or 2 Blitzer a Runner and a Witch Elf. This is more consistent. The Witch Elf has got more potential for carnage. But if I'm feeling carnagey, then the Kane build is good. This is the great thing about Dark Elves. Their baseline is so solid. It's just all upside, basically. Anyway, let me know what your pick for Dark Elf rosters are, and we'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking.
Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to help support the channel even further, please like and subscribe, or come join us on our Patreon. We have early access to content. We get loads of feedback from you guys, and we try and do competitions as much as we can. Or you can get yourself some Bonehead podcast merch on our Spreadshirt site. So if you want to support a team, especially for the Bonehead Championship, you can pick up a shirt, a mug, things like that. It all helps support the channel, and we really appreciate it. Anyway, links below. Thank you very much. Happy blocking.